Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Thrash Reviews here on the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, where I continue to review big-time hard rock and heavy metal releases in the calendar year of 2016. And we are keeping the ball rolling as we get ready to talk about here in this review the brand new release from Italian symphonic technical progressive death metal masters Fleshgod Apocalypse. Now, for those who don't know, Fleshgod Apocalypse is, like I said, a symphonic, progressive, technical death metal band from Italy. And not a whole lot of big metal bands come out of Italy. Like, the only Italian metal bands that come up off the top of my head, aside from Fleshgod, are Lacuna Coil, Necrodeath, and I believe Moonspell or Nightfall. One of those two bands come from Italy. I'm thinking Nightfall's Greece, but I could be wrong in that, but I know it's one of them too. Those are the only Italian metal bands that come up off the top of my head as far as knowing what bands are there. But with Fleshgod Apocalypse, their sound is very unique. They incorporate, like I said, some progressive influences with that real brutal technical style to their death metal, with the symphonic orchestras involved, and even some female operatic vocals, and some clean vocals too from one of the members of the band. So Fleshgod have quite the unique kind of music that they're going for. Now, granted, I never listened to Fleshgod Apocalypse until this album was being tossed around and it came out and stuff like that. I just listened to it, and a good tool to get into a new album and then one to go buy would be Apple Music. So that way you can get a sample of what you're wanting to hear, and if you like it a lot, go out and buy the album. That's exactly what I do. Sometimes albums will be on YouTube or what have you, but I think Apple Music is a better way in case you can't find the album on YouTube. Apple Music is the way to go for this particular reason. But to get into the review, we're going to kick it off with the opening track, which is March Royale. It's got E's at the end, so it's like March Royal or March Royale. March Royale. I cannot speak tonight. But this was a nice little symphonic introduction track that was really cool. That would go into the next track, which is In Aeternum. I'm going to try to say this right. In Aeternum. So that's, I guess, the way you pronounce it. And this track was a solidified symphonic brutal song because it had the symphonic element intact, but a lot of brutality with the vocals. Like, the death metal vocals are very, very strong on this release. Some of the best death metal vocals I've heard in quite a long time. It's just incredible to hear this kind of approach for a death metal vocal with that operatic singing from the female vocalist in the background, as well as another member of the band doing clean vocals. It makes for an interesting, diverse mixture of vocals on not only the song, but the entire record. So, and this track certainly exemplifies what Fleshgod Apocalypse are all about. Then we get to a rather interesting track, Paramour, which is, I think, some Italian way, and then in parentheses it's Italian. It says, Die Leidenschaft bringt Lieden. And I think I destroyed that, but this track was an operatic track. The female vocalist doing the operatic vocals gets her chance to do her own song, and for an opera track, this was quite beautiful. And it was a great lead into the next track we're going to talk about, And the Vulture Beholds. Again, continuing the ideas of combining that brutal death metal vocal style with some very heavy, intense playing with progressive structures, with that orchestra in full tilt, and it just absolutely is mesmerizing. Then we get to probably my favorite track of the album, which is Syphilis, and no, not the STD, it's something else. but I can't go into full detail about it. But the song Syphilis was just the longest song on the album at 7.5 minutes. Quite the epic track right here. This track to me kind of whenever I listen to this track, I think a band that I think was a big influence on a track like this was a band like Opeth, because this track had a lot of like tendencies of what you would hear from Opeth, with the more atmospheric, progressive, but yet also brutal and beautiful. That idea of what Opeth does, Fleshgod Apocalypse pretty much kind of do their own take on it, with the orchestras, the operatic vocals, but that dense, beauty, atmospheric sound behind it. Like I said, with this entire record, just really captures your imagination. It's almost like, say, as if you're going to, say, an art school, and you see all these colorful presentations of beautiful pieces of art, and then when you go through, say, like a picture book that is all artistic, and then you get a story that goes along with it. That's pretty much what this album really entailed. It was all storytelling, but yet it also has a diverse palette, with the brutality, the beauty of the album, with the symphonies and the operatic vocals, but still brutal, with some very intense playing, the brutal vocals. And this song, Syphilis, really took everything that was going on with the previous tracks, meshed them all into one. And then the closing track, the title track, King, which was a piano ballad, which was really beautiful and a great way to conclude in what was a monumental album. And there you have it. This was quite another thrill ride. I am telling you, aside from the new Prong album, which to me was a bit of a disappointment, but still a decent record, so far, on all the albums I reviewed this year, no clunkers, at least not yet. And this album continues a trend of just masterpieces that have been coming out already this year, you know, with Dream Theater, Borknagar, Obscura, and now Fleshgod Apocalypse. We've got quite a few contenders up there currently for Album of the Year, and we're just in February, and we still got a long way to go. Final score for this album, 89 out of 100. Definitely going to see this on the Album of the Year list, but it's all depending on where, because typically what I'm going to be doing is, once I've reviewed all the albums that have come out in the year that I want to check out, what I'll be doing is I'll be listening to each album one more time to construct the list, and by that time, scores won't really matter. It'll be all about what I thought was the best over whatever else. But currently, if it were to just be score specific, this album currently would be number 5 on the Album of the Year list, which is a contender for it. You never know, this album could go higher as I start to listen to it more if I'm in the mood for it. But once again, 89 out of 100, King by Fleshgod Apocalypse. Bravo. That's all I can say. This was a thrill ride like no other. Just like I said with Dream Theater, Obscura, and Borknagar. But then again, I can get really amazed really quickly if I hear something very unique like this. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Peace out, and have a good night.